The planet of Jangalore. Rosa Spruce steered the flitter across the continent, high above the forest, stretching from the amber ocean to the horizon. Jangalore was an untrammeled planet of jungles covered in a blanket of yellow clouds. The trees had leaves of a strange indigo color, instead of the familiar green of forests on her distant homeworld. As far as she knew, this uncharted land had no sentient inhabitants. She glanced at the date on the comm screen and swallowed a sigh. Tomorrow was the Festival of Lights, when families gathered together to decorate a tree, exchange gifts and offer prayers of thanks. Rosa had no family or plans to celebrate the festival on the eve of the new year. Her parents were buried half the galaxy away. Since they had died, she had struggled to survive on her own. Spruce Security was her most successful enterprise so far. She had scrambled for the credits to buy good quality, reliable handweapons and the survival suit, with its lightweight armor. Then Rosa had registered as Spruce Security, capitalizing on her skills with weapons and her psychic talent of empathy. Now she earned a meager wage as a guard for dangerous enterprises. If this trip went well and they found the ruins left by the fabulous ancients, her bonus would pay off her loans. Today she flew over the jungles of Jangalore as the hired guard for Psi Master Varan, one of the elite Grand Masters. According to the most reliable reports, he resided in a splendid mansion on a planet terraformed to his specifications. After 3 days of travel in his company, she had become inured to the electric hum of his psychic power. She had not anticipated her attraction to the lean athlete, with the strength and agility of a man a third of his reputed age. A hopeless attraction, she feared. Surely he could claim any woman in the galaxy if he wished. Instead, his passion was reserved for the remnants of ancient civilization. He hoped to discover a new site concealed in the jungles of Jangalore. Psi Master Varan sat beside her, intent on the detector he had invented. The silver band around his brows was the sole indication of his superior rank of psychic power. The rank of Grand Master was achieved by a combination of inherited talent, rigorous training, and artificial enhancements. The faint scar above his left ear suggested one of the ubiquitous comm inserts, but she had no idea if he had other implants. His single-minded pursuit of the ancients who had once ruled the galaxy had led them to this uncharted wilderness. The steady clicks from his detector signaled the ancient ruins lay somewhere in the depths of the extensive jungle below the flitter. Deferring to his superior status, Rosa asked, "Did you get a clear reading, Psi Master?" She was merely the hired help, and had no clue why he had chosen her. Her credentials for security were excellent. Yet her native empathy was a low-status, maligned and misunderstood talent. Still, he paid well, and she had been enticed by the opportunity to guard one of the few living Psi Masters. The Psi Master replied slowly, "Yes, the signal is strong." He glanced at her and waved toward the trees. "Our target lies in the middle of the forest. Let us check the signal from ground level." Rosa swung the flitter in a wide circle, descending to land on the narrow verge of pebbles between the trees and the Ochre Ocean. Jumping out of the passenger door of the flitter, Psi Master Varan strode towards the blue-hued trees that towered in a vivid contrast to the dull yellow of the overcast sky. Always cautious, Rosa activated the locking mechanism and scanned their surroundings. She couldn't risk losing their only means of transport off the planet. High in the sky overhead, the native vultures soared with their third wing raised like a huge purple sail. No other movement was visible. She ran after the Psi Master. The Psi Master walked along the verge of the jungle, searching for a path to the interior. Following 2 paces behind him, Rosa admired the colorful flowers of the vines draped over the branches. The shadowy trails under the trees beckoned to her with their promise of mystery in the jungle depths. Her empathic senses reveled in the mental signs of the jungle denizens, the tiny sparks of small creatures, and the hungry stab of large predators. Halting in front of a dirt track, Varan stared into the shadows cast by the huge trees. Then he touched the controls of the detector strapped over his shoulder. Rosa stood beside him and gazed at his stern face framed in straight black hair. She knew little about the Grand Masters, although she had heard many rumors about their mysterious psi talents. As usual, Varan exuded power and authority. Yet, during the 3 days of their search for the ancients, she had seen no hint of his vaunted psi powers. One of the 3 winged vultures swooped down to examine them. The Psi Master glanced up, warned by the shadow overhead. Hesitantly, Rosa said, "Psi Master, the vulture is merely curious about us. We're strangers in its territory." He stared at her, his green eyes half shuttered in thought, and asked, "Can you sense the thoughts of the vulture?" Blushing under his scrutiny, Rosa replied, "Yes, I am an empath." "Interesting," he commented, returning to his perusal of the detector as if her ability was unimportant. Annoyed by his cold indifference, Rosa bit her lip. His emotions were a mystery, since she could not penetrate his strong mental shield. Instead, she gazed at the beautiful clusters of flowers and asked, "Which direction does the detector indicate?" "The forest looks wonderful with the tracks weaving beneath the tall trees and the tangles of flowering vines. I'd love to explore those mysterious paths." The Psi Master glanced up, the glint in his deep-set eyes hinting at his amusement. He tapped the screen on the detector and gestured towards the trees. "The signal for the artifact comes from the interior, almost straight ahead. We have 2 choices, either we fly over the jungle or walk through it." She loved flying, but they had already circled the forest twice. Her instincts urged her toward the shadowy paths. "Please, Psi Master, I'd prefer to walk. We didn't spot anything unusual from above. Can we walk through the trees?" For a moment his green eyes pierced into her face, as if he desired to read her mind. But she detected no probe and his mental shield was intact. He said, "Please call me Varan. We've been companions for 3 days and formality is unnecessary." Smiling at his new amiability, Rosa asked, "Okay Varan, which way do we go?" His request for informality was the first sign of a thaw in his indifference. He had treated her with a distant courtesy, even when they slept in the cramped cabin of the flitter at night. Varan gestured for her to precede him along the track, under the vine-draped foliage. She smiled in delight, shrugged her pack into a comfortable position and stepped forward. On the edge of the track, bunches of bananas hung from narrow-leaved vines. Not the familiar fruit of earth, but an oval yellow fruit exuding a sweet scent of ripeness. Rosa halted just before entering the shade of the trees. A shrill cry echoed from deep within the jungle. She placed her fingers on the cold handle of the laser at her belt, spruce security on alert for danger. His deep voice reassured her, "Don't worry, Rosa. We are warned and armed." She nodded and strode under the drooping canopy of vines with their clusters of pink and yellow flowers. The light dimmed as they marched further down the track, and a shower of raindrops fell from the treetops. The misty rainfall was merely an inconvenience. Her insulated suit was waterproof, and kept her body at a comfortable temperature. They walked through the steady drizzle. The track threaded between the wide boles of huge trees. Far above, the treetops were hidden from view. Tiny winged animals flitted across their path, like pale moths with 2 triangular wings joined at a hairy sphere. Clumps of blue blades sprung from the undergrowth and fans of white fungus clung to purple tree trunks. Intrigued by each novelty, Rosa glanced from one side of the path to the other. She relished the earthy scents released by the rain and the sighing of wind in the treetops. Varan walked silently beside her. He was intent upon reaching their target, the ancient ruins from an earlier civilization. Every 10 paces, he checked the detector to ensure the path was heading in the right direction.